Hey, welcome into the live show. Today, we're going to be doing something fun, I think. Here on Metaverse Insider, we don't get a chance to go live as much, but today we're doing that for you guys, so hopefully this is a good one. Love to get your comments. We'll talk about a lot of stuff today around Asia. We'll be looking at both Japan and China and what the strategies are and what strategies are playing out within not only Metaverse tokens, but also within the overall market. So it's going to be a fun one. You guys are going to love this one, I think. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to Metaverse Insider. Let's start it with the aspect of what's happening in Asia. And if you look at some of the strong countries that have, one, adopted not only Web3, but have also adopted technology, this is one of the things that really plays out in the Pacific Rim. This was a tweet by TED Talks Macro. After 6 consecutive months, let me zoom in on that for you guys, of contraction or contraction, today's Chinese manufacturing PMI confirmed to move back into expansion. So stocks are breaking out of the 3-week consolidation. And, you know, we could see some scenarios playing this out in the global stage when it comes to crypto markets. This is something that could be a very interesting alignment with what's happening not only in crypto, but also in Web3. A lot of that could play out with what the pressures coming off of what's happening in the Pacific Rim. Further into this was Dr. Michael Long. He talks about the China's factory scenario, which activity is stunning with fastest growth in a decade. Again, these are moves happening in China that are slightly affecting what could be occurring. This is something that Gareth and I even talked about over on TechPath this week, is what kind of impact this could have on American markets. I still believe there's a lot of things working right now on a global scale that could be setting the U.S. up for a tough time when it comes to blockchain regulation. Further into this came from Wu Blockchain. The Ethereum Foundation announced that DevCon 7, the Ethereum Developer Conference, will be held in Southeast Asia in 2024. 4 countries within Southeast Asia rank in the top 20 of the Global Crypto Adoption Index. And of course, Vietnam and the Philippines are at 1 and 2. Remember, we had Ben Fairbank on from Red Fox just here on this show just not too long ago. He's in Vietnam, which is one of the economic zones of development around a lot of these metaverse tokens, games, and Web3 projects. So very, very interesting, and one that we want to keep a very close eye on because this, of course, has global effect, I think, on crypto in general. Further into this, Hong Kong's crypto hub ambitions are winning a quiet backing from Beijing. This is a big deal because it starts to position a global scenario playing out where maybe we're seeing Asia in general, we'll look at all the countries, including Japan, taking lead positions on advancing how and what we are going to be doing and what they're doing around metaverse and also around crypto, not only just regulation, but integration into society. A lot of this will play out. Right now here in the US, we're really kind of fighting kind of a two-party system, and it's one that we're dealing with regulation as pretty much kind of the stifling point of what's happening in crypto overall, at least in the US. The difference is that in the US, you've got a real strong investor base, and that is really the thing that is holding this up overall. You look at this chart right here, or video right here. I want to show this from Ripple. I'm going to play this clip for you guys because it gets into CBDC and the use case of how CBDC is being deployed worldwide. And this is Ripple talking about this very issue.
So we're in dialogue with, not 10, not 20, but a bunch more, central banks around the world on these discussions. We've announced projects with Bhutan, with Palau, and others to come. And I think that just shows you that this really resonates. Now, one size does not fit all, but we need to be in this as this develops, because you're right about the big point here is there is no question that digital currencies are going to be a part of the landscape going forward. And every country has to have an answer for their own constituents, their own governments, as to what it will do and how it will impact. And most importantly, we think in the positive case, how it can really drive economic growth and financial inclusion.
Right. So what you see here is the fact that Ripple has already started these kinds of integrations. They see this as a big potential of not only financial inclusion, but also economic growth. This again plays into the positive side of what's happening outside of the borders of the United States. This is something that I'm very worried about and concerned because I see the US and we've been able to lead the way around technology in the past. I'm not so sure that's going to happen this innovation cycle around. Here was John Deaton kind of talking a little bit more on this. Japan and Asia appear to be ready to take full advantage of how far behind the United States has become relative to crypto adoption and regulation clarity. And this, not surprising. You guys know that we talk about this all the time. This is an issue. If you're not on speed dial with your regulators, your lawmakers, your House reps, the people basically that run Congress and the Senate, you should be. And the reason is you need to let them know your position on where you stand in terms of innovation, number one. And number two is the ability to kind of level the playing field. I think that's the other factor that a lot of people kind of miss. DWF Labs came in talking about Conflux, which is they recently agreed to build the blockchain-based SIM cards with China's second largest wireless carrier. They received like a $10 million investment from DWF Labs. What this means is that China has Conflux as the selected token that's going to be a use case scenario within telecommunications. So all of this plays out very interestingly around what's happening in China and, of course, Hong Kong, as you guys just saw earlier. Further into this, you got Tencent, another Chinese platform or company out there, teams up with MultiverX. Remember, this used to be eGold to expand Web3 strategies. This, to me, also just reinvigorates these kind of connectivity points in what we've seen both on China and the evolution of what they're trying to do from an economic standpoint, re-energize their economy. Remember, their productivity has been down pretty significantly, which I think has caused a lot of what we've seen on the economic front globally. So China is a very important component to this. I'm not very happy that this is happening, but because I feel like some of the Western states should be the ones leading in this innovation. Unfortunately, this is not the case right now. So it begins. This is coming from MultiverX. The xPortal app is here, the most exciting journey we've ever embarked on. Finance, Web3, all this AI, avatars, metaverse. Cool thing here, you'll notice here in the video, is the app itself all integrates both aspects of Web3, the ability to, of course, have the wallet application and the ability to flow into a metaverse scenario. So this gets very interesting in terms of how applications and apps like this will develop in the future. And again, building on blockchain, but more importantly, building on Web3. Further into it, just showing xPortal on the download over here on Google Play, Android. You can kind of see here. I mean, look at this. That's 1 million downloads in such a short time. This is pretty significant. This just recently launched, so I'm very interested in how this is going to play out. Here's MultiverX for eGold. You guys know it. 4816. Remember, this is a ranking token, number 46 right here. You see a little bit about their circulating supply over here on the right, and obviously their market cap setting in about $1 billion. So, we don't currently track this one, but it might be one that we should start taking a look at on the CPI, just because I'm interested in tokens that start to showcase scenarios where there could be growth. And in some cases, those are outside the United States. So definitely one to watch out for here. FTX Japan allows withdrawal of funds. This is a big deal because, I don't I don't understand how they were able to pull that off, and we were able to get something like that here in the United States with FTX.US. But again, at least they've moved on. The point is that Japan is in a position now, I think, trying to take a leadership role in where blockchain is going. And their regulators understand this, they're embracing it, and the companies are starting to play into this as a strength as well. 83% of Japanese traders now are doing HODL. Again, another big bullish factor of what they look at long term. Let me just kind of showcase a couple of things here. The firm found that crypto holders say that creditworthiness and future prospects were the key factors when choosing a coin to invest in. And nearly 75% of the surveyed individuals said they'd be active in the crypto markets for a period of 3 years or less. So brand new to the market, which means lots of upside because that means investing futures, meaning people that are in their 20s, 30s, maybe early 40s. And we've talked about this before. Under the age of 40 is having a dramatic effect on the financial markets, even here in the United States. So big deals in Japan. Ripple, of course, is partnering now with Japan, also acquiring crypto lender HashHub. This just shows the ability for Ripple to move on, move past the situation in the United States with the SEC. This again starts to go back into the clip we played earlier of them really taking a hard look at expanding their business worldwide on a global level. Here's the agreement on the creation of the Japanese Metaverse economic zone. Again, lots here because there's a lot of big companies involved. You just can see kind of the Fujitsu, Mitsubishi. These are some of the titans of the Japanese economic markets. But if you look at further into it, I mean, they're literally moving into what they call the Mirrorverse. And to me, this is it's kind of like, think of this as Silicon Valley in 1996, 97. Think of it like that. That's the kind of government interaction that we're starting to see now. This is going to be an innovation zone for the evolution of Web3 and all things crypto and what we'll see in blockchain development in terms of technology. Again, another big move for Japan, so good for them. This came from one of their lawmaker hearings and basically responding to both the markets but also to the citizens of Japan. I want to just play a few things here. Let me play this clip right here. And we're going to kind of go over the clip here. They basically say there's various expectations. Let me kind of pull this off. I'll let you guys read the sublines there.
それから地方創生に活用する。
It's toward a cool Japan and regional revitalization. Now, what that means is they believe that this starts to set the standard for, think about back to Silicon Valley. That's where all the innovators from companies, developers, culture, all those things started to build out of San Francisco based on the Silicon Valley. And this is exactly what their lawmakers are trying to look to. So I would recommend, I know it's a lot of research, we'll probably leave some links, and if anything, we'll put it in our research of this video over on our Substack. Because a lot of times, guys, we share some of the research with you if you're in our Diamond Circle over on Substack. But it's great research if you're looking at tokens or you're just trying to understand what the global marketplace is really moving into. Here was just to give an example. This is a real-life Gundam, physical, that is in Japan. So again, why build this? What was the reason? The thing is that you've got a completely different culture that is starting to spring up in the Asian markets. And I think this is just the beginning because they're very big into anime, also big into these kind of collectibles and kind of this evolution of the mechs that really kind of changed the, I think it changes the perception of how the youthful people of Japan are really looking at maybe growing investments. And that means leaning toward Web3, those kind of things. So cool stuff. Further in it, this is just a clip real quick. You kind of see a little bit here. This is where it kind of integrates into their idea of what that might be in terms of a metaverse. So it gets into physical and digital integrations. So you see the kind of the connection here. And then right there is the physical aspect of it. And then, of course, it plays into it further of the actual, there it is. There's the model coming in. So again, this could be all things in terms of e-commerce and the potential for culture to kind of make its way into Web3 and all of it using a metaverse integration. So pretty cool stuff. Again, you just have to pay attention to some of these things that are happening outside the US. This, of course, was the Gundam-based virtual world, further into just kind of seeing a little bit of Gundam base. Lots happening there. Great stuff. I like it. Here was the Gundam Metaverse. This was Project Mellow. further into where it has kind of an almost an AI integration. And I'll show you a clip from this one. This is kind of interesting. This is utilizing AI. So it's basically integrating. I've got the sound off, but basically the AI is interacting with the chat over here on the side. So again, more use cases of how technology is advancing in Asia and especially in some of these emerging markets when it comes to Web3 and blockchain. All right, further into, I think I had a couple more clips here, then we'll jump. Oh yeah, here was one right here. Shows you a little bit more use case of integration into AI, AR, again, games, what all this means for culture. This is tying in some of the devices, which this is already a style in which they're building around the culture of Japan, China, Vietnam, etc. Some of these. That's why we're seeing the ETH conferences starting to float over there for sure. Story in here, Japanese media giant GREE, of course, is building on Web3. We've reported on this before. They're running nodes on Avalanche. That's a big deal if you're watching the Avalanche token. This is where I think, and I'll show you some examples of where the top tokens are. But remember, GREE is a huge player in this space. This is just some of their game business, their anime business, all the titles that they cover. This is a huge, think of this almost like Epic Games of the United States. Tremendously effective and tremendously loved by the Asian market. So very cool stuff. Further into this is just reality. This is showing another use case scenario playing into this more into fast growth. And I think this is where China, Japan, and some of these countries are seeing the opportunity here of virtual reality, the idea of integration into Web3. All this starts to go, and then of course that plays right back into tokens and how that plays into the market. This is BitPoint, who is talking about joining the SBI group and continues to expand its customer base. And you'll notice a couple of things here. SBI is investing in terms of digital assets. Look right there, Matic and AVAX. Again, type of crypto assets that they think are going to continue to grow. And again, this gets back into the strategies that a lot of investment houses are starting to look at within these markets. Trending cryptocurrency by country, Avalanche right there, Japan, number one. Canada, and then the US, which by right now on this chart, US is only on this chart once, and that's with Avalanche. Here's Ethereum right now, Serbia, Ukraine. And I think that's why also we're seeing ETH move into Asia. They see that they're not getting the kind of penetration that some of these other tokens, especially their ones, are getting. Binance comes in. You can see them, again, Vietnam, number one, which was the number one economic zone out there. So pretty cool fact here about how this all works. This came from AVAX HODL'ing, so just be aware of those kind of scenarios when you're looking at those top tokens. And then last but not least, Super Nintendo World. I'll play this one out a little bit. This again gets back to culture. And culture is one of the things I think that make up kind of the future of where a lot of this is going to evolve into, which is absolutely huge because it does apply to what Web3 will be in the coming years. This was a interview over at NFT Paris by Yat Siu, which we've had him on the show from Animoca. And he talks a lot here about this shift toward culture. And let me play this clip for you real quick. This came from Decrypt.
So let's talk about the metaverse to start with.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot I want to ask you.
Yeah.
But you guys are metaverse bulls. Mm-hmm. I think quite recently raising another metaverse.
We think of the metaverse and web, sort of, layer 1, layer 2 blockchains like building national economies. There's many elements around that, right? You can't measure Ethereum on the basis of how much gas it generates. It's about the economic activity and developers that are building.
Financial rails.
Exactly. Systems, ecosystem, employment, all these things that happen because of Ethereum, right? Now, imagine, in the physical world, if we didn't have an economy that was based on culture. We think of culture as, maybe an artist or a musician. But actually, if it wasn't for that artist or musician, you wouldn't have Netflix. You wouldn't have HBO. You wouldn't have Sony PlayStation. You wouldn't have a TV. You don't have radio. You wouldn't have everything that you enjoy right now. Culture is the biggest soft power and perhaps the biggest driver of economic growth. Even our trade and retail. The richest person in the world is the owner of LVMH. He's basically a proponent of culture. We're here in France, and that's all it is, right? And also, speaking in DeFi terms, culture is the biggest TVL of an economy, right? I mean, that's what people sink their money in because they love it and they don't trade it. But there's a small percentage of people, as we have in the finance world, that basically are from crypto Wall Street. And what they do is they just look at profit maximization. They trade and trade and trade, and that's fine. They don't like royalties. They're the proponents who say get rid of royalties. But what they don't know, or what they...
All right, so you get a chance. I mean, that's Yat Siu. He's pitching his book. I get that, you know, and they are very big on, I would call them one of the, if not the face of Web3 when it comes to investment properties out there. And so, you know, you're going to expect that coming from him. But at the same time, he makes a lot of really good points in the aspect of how culture is shifting, and that's really where the growth will be. And who is and what is becoming the largest culture capitals of the world are showing up more and more in Asia. This is also playing into it when you think about tax havens and scenarios like that, and you think of these nomad capitalists that are out there starting to move around, and you've got places like Cambodia, you've got places like Malaysia, all of these which have very beneficial tax positions for expats, etc., which means innovators go, developers go, and then culture starts to get birthed in these markets, which creates the next Silicon Valley. So that's the thing that we're watching very closely. I want to take a couple of looks at some of the tokens that are active over there, Conflux being one of them. And of course, here recently with some of the news, we're on the daily right here. You see Conflux bouncing. Love to get your feedback. Do you think we should put Conflux on the CPI right now? Because it's not one that we've had on there. We've looked at it before, but now that it's really playing into a very strong position within Asia and China, this might be one to watch a little bit closer. Another one to keep an eye on here is Avalanche. Avalanche, though, has been playing a little bit weaker here recently. If you look at kind of the sideways action that we've had for about the last 30 days, this was the big bump right here on the 27th of January, and then a little bit of sideways and, of course, downtrending. We're watching Avalanche for an opportunity. We think there might be another opportunity to get this somewhere around the $10 mark. In the future, question is whether or not it recoils and comes back into that phase. We continue to track Avalanche, of course, on the CPI. All right, so let's get over to the chart real quick, or actually the poll real quick. I want to see what you guys had to say about that. All right, so best Asian Metaverse token, Avalanche comes in at 42, Conflux at 24. I think that's just because a lot of people don't know it. And then Ripple, of course, at 34%. AVAX wins. Wow, that's great. Interesting stuff. Couple of questions coming in. Stan says, Gary Gensler's pushing America back into the dark ages. Totally agree with this. This is a problem that, unfortunately, they can't get out of their way. They're protecting the banks. The likelihood is global banks will kind of circumvent what's happening on the Fed, even though the dollar is kind of the world's, is the world's global reserve. But at some point, there will be a break away from that. All global reserves fail at some point in their history. So just remember, AVAX or ICP, I would go with, even though I'm interested in ICP, we've had, I think it's Damien, his name. We've had him on the show before, but I like Avalanche versus that one. Jasmy or VeChain, I definitely would be on to VeChain there. Liking that. I love it. Solana to $2. I like it. Maybe. Could happen. Let's see. Hey, Paul, any ideas on Jasmy? I don't know this one. I know it's Japan's Bitcoin. We haven't really tracked it as much, but remember, that's a very small market, so the volatility and volume of that token doesn't necessarily make it out there in terms of catching on some of the bigger trends. Arfox Sidious or Sidus, we've had the Sidus guys on the show before. Arfox is doing some very interesting things. I did a full analysis over on the Diamond Circle with that. So it's a good one for sure. Why should any government use Ripple, US-based company, to create their CBDC? Well, I think the key here is technology. As we start to see technology innovation and blockchain, many of these central banks are not necessarily geared to be able to scale, and they're not necessarily geared to be able to handle the kind of technology adoption and understanding how to make it work within their own infrastructure. I think that's why they're going to really kind of set back and maybe start making some connections to these blockchain companies. All right, yeah, lots happening. Yeah, for sure. I see a lot of notes coming in on the chats. Listen, guys, if you're not part of the Diamond Circle, make sure and jump in. It's the place to be. It also is free. And all you have to do is join on the link below. It's very easy. If you guys want to catch me, it's out there on Twitter, @Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on Metaverse Insider.